Well, today is February the 18th, and today's demolition day. There's been an area on the morning, which is the east-facing wall of this barn, that I had some old fire bushes that just were the old variety, and they never really turned a pretty red for me. And so today is the day. I've pruned them, and in 1 year they can get as tall as the gutters again. So it's time for them to be removed. We've already removed one, which was to the right of that bucket there. You can kind of see the hole. He uses his front end loader on his tractor to put a chain around the base, and he lifts it up. These are very mature. These are probably 15-year-old. Whoa. That one's in there good. Whoa. The entire wheel came up on the back. And then he takes them down to an old fence row. They make great protection for the habitat, great protection for the wildlife. It's a great habitat, that's what I'm trying to say. He's making him a big pile right here first, and then he'll take it all down to that fence row down there. You see that? Those trees are just, they've been beat up by high winds, and it separates our farm from the neighbor's farm. And there's not a whole lot of places with open fields for rabbits and squirrels and raccoons and foxes and things like that to live. And so they tend to live in these fence rows. And so when he puts these big bushes in the fence row, all the branching provides protection from hawks and other predators. So what I'm planning on doing is, once this entire wall, this used to be an old paddock, and you can see the doors here. My hands are absolutely filthy. I've been digging up peonies. There were 4 peonies right here, beautiful burgundy, deep burgundy wine color peonies, and I've dug those up. I'll show you those. It's really not much to show. Let me move my shovel. So he's pulled up as close as he can get with his bucket. And then he's going to get out of the tractor and put the chain that's hooked to the bucket. The bucket has several hooks and things, which is easy to attach the chain. And he goes around the back of it as close to the base and crown of the plant as he can get. And he wraps that chain tight around the base or trunk of that bush. You can see him down on his hands and knees. Another reason that we're removing these fire bushes is because the gutter up here, the fascia board, and it's not fascia, I'm sorry, it's not the drip edge. Anyway, I'll put the name of it. It's the board that goes behind the gutter. It's has separated, the metal separated, allowed water to get back behind it, and it's rotting, and it's allowing birds and other things to get actually inside the barn. And he needs to get up there and fix it, but he couldn't because these bushes are so huge. So, and I've been wanting them gone anyway, so it was sort of like a, I don't know, double purpose. So here he goes. Now you can see he's you know what that black stuff is. That's stuff I used before I knew better. That's that old landscape fabric. I will not use that anywhere else ever again. It does not keep out weeds. It doesn't even keep out trees. We've had actual saplings grow inside these bushes. I can see one standing there now with that landscape material. One more to go. And then I'm going to get after these roses, trim those back. They're the double knockout roses. They've been there for probably 12 years. And they grow really, really large. All right, he's on the 4th and last one. There you can see the trunk. It's a very short trunk. All right, he's gonna back up, put a little tension on the chain, and then lift the bucket. And it pulls out the entire root ball, so I can put some dirt in those holes and we can plant something different there that won't get as tall or wide. More landscape fabric. Let's take a look and see how deep these holes are. This was old clay dirt originally, because this was a new construction when we moved here in 07. And so a lot of the clay was, there's a lot of clay, dirt when you have new constructions because of all the excavating and digging. You can see there's some of that landscape fabric. There's some old roots there of the fire bushes, but the main heart of the root ball is gone, so I don't foresee that any sprouts or anything will come from these roots. And I am anxious. See, you can see a sapling. I don't know if you can see it, but right there. It's growing where I had all that landscape material. So you can see all the landscape material here. I just hate that stuff, because what happens is all the roots go through it. And then when you try to pull up the landscape material, when you realize you've made a mistake and you try to pull it up, you can't, because it's like wrapped around the roots and everything. It's a nightmare. But I did not know what I was doing early on when we moved here in 07. And I thought that's what everybody used. And you live and learn. So this area will be a blank canvas. You can see my horses. This is embarrassing, but I had a paddock here, and these are 2 stall doors that come from the stalls inside out to this paddock. I removed the fence, so there's no more paddock here, but we still have the stall doors. But you can see the horses, they would get rowdy and kick at each other, and they damaged the metal on this building. Horses are highly destructive. I don't have horses anymore, but I've had them pretty much my whole life, up until about 4 years ago. And so I love them. You know, maybe in the future I might want to have more, but they are always looking for a reason to get hurt. Even it doesn't matter how hard you try to provide a safe environment, they get hurt so easy, and they're highly destructive. They'll crib. Cribbing is where basically it's a term to describe horses that will put their teeth on fences, like the top of the fence, and they push down with their front teeth, and it causes like a air suction. It's weird. I may not be giving the scientific description correctly, but
Cribbing or crib biting is a stereotypy or seemingly functionless repetitive behavior. Cribbing is characterized by grabbing an upright object with the teeth and pulling against the object with an arched neck and sucking air. This horse has just completed a small meal of pellets. Horses often lick a surface that they are about to use for cribbing.
They make a noise, and it's habitual. They get a habit of doing it, but they can destroy your wood fences. So if you're thinking about getting horses, I strongly suggest you talk to some people who have had horses. Think about the pros and cons, and then think about what you can do to, basically put in as safeguards to prevent these kind of things. If you have any wood or trees in the field that they're in, they will scrape the bark off of it just for habit. They're bored. It's not that they're hungry, it's that they're bored. And sometimes they do it to provide more fiber in their diet. But anyway, back to this area. This is, like I said, this only gets morning sun. This is an east facing wall. And I think it has a lot of potential. Like I said, these roses I can trim way down or completely remove them and have a really nice area here to plant new things. I think it would be really good for hydrangeas, things that can handle morning sun, that don't get super out of control huge, but I want them to get big enough that they hide all that damage. It doesn't show up on video as much as it does in person, but it looks beat up. So if I can plant some really pretty, maybe big leaf hydrangeas that'll get up tall enough to hide all that, but not out of control where they hide the doors and get up to the gutters. So I also had here in front of these fire bushes, I had 4 peonies, and they were beautiful, just a wine burgundy color. And these were the holes. Like I had a hole here, and of course I didn't want to plant anything by my front of my door, so I skipped over. And in the center of these 2 doors, right here, I planted. There's a hole there, and there was a hole there. And so I've moved, completely dug up the root ball and moved them. I'll show you one. I was going to plant them here because, again, peonies like it cold. They do not like the heat, and we're zone 7A. So I'm afraid if I put them anywhere else where they get afternoon sun, even early afternoon sun, I'm afraid it would just cook them. But here's one. It's got the dead foliage still on it. And you can see all the dead foliage here. But I dug a pretty large root ball. That's probably a good 1.5 foot diameter. And I thought about planting it somewhere behind these crepe myrtles so that they would get filtered sun and only morning sun. So I'll probably plant those 4 here, and they are alive. I'll show you one of them where you can see the little buds coming out. If you hear a lot of racket, it's my husband. He's grading our driveway, trying to get the gravel back in the ruts instead of on the sides. So this is one of the peonies that I dug up. You can see I tried to get a really large root ball. There's my hand for reference because I didn't want to disturb the roots any more than necessary. But you can see that they're starting to come up. You can see them here. Now these are not actual rhizomes as far as the roots. They call them tubers. And but you can see them here and over here. And so this peony will continue to get larger and larger and larger. And some peonies last generations. It's a long-lived perennial, and every year they get larger, and they don't like hot weather. They prefer it cool, at least from my experience, and they will actually in the summer basically go dormant. They just turn brown and they just go dormant. And in the past I thought, well, they're dead. because it was still very much in the, the season was still warm, and they just basically just decided to go back to sleep. It was just too hot for them. But then every spring they come back out more full, more beautiful than the year before. So I think they're much like I guess kind of like a bleeding heart, an old-fashioned bleeding heart that doesn't like the heat, and it tends to go dormant in the summer, and then comes back out in early spring and is beautiful, and then it goes dormant again. So it's an unusual type plant in that way. But they get really ugly in the summer when they start going dormant. So I'd like to plant them somewhere where they are beautiful in the spring, but then maybe something comes up and hides them, and something that's more of a summer bloomer that kind of hides their dead foliage. I really don't know, other than maybe something like a panicle hydrangea, or maybe an annual that gets large but doesn't hit peak until maybe mid to late summer. Anyway, any thoughts or suggestions would be appreciated. But that's basically what that root ball looks like, and I've just got to find a place somewhere, maybe over here, or like I said, in the front of the barn. I still haven't decided 100%, so I'm leaning towards this front of this barn, because it does get morning sun, and when it gets the heat of the day, it will be protected. So I'm probably going to plant all 4 of them along down through here. We got so much cleanup to do, but it's February, and so now's the time to do it, to get it ready for spring. So here's one. This is the smallest one. I went ahead and dug a hole, and I didn't dig the hole quite as deep as the root ball. Because I feel like it will probably settle. And you can see there is a shoot that's coming up right there, the pink. And there's the little tubers. Here's a tuber. And so I'm just going to take this dirt, see how red the dirt is compared to that dirt. There's so much clay. So hopefully it'll do okay. And I'm just going to kind of fill in and water it good so it'll settle, the dirt will settle around the tubers. And then I'm going to put a little cage around it for 2 reasons. 1, to remind me it's there. And then 2, when peonies come up, they have these giant blooms on them. And when it rains, it will weigh those blooms down and they will flop to the ground. So I like to put a little ring around the peonies that will help support those blooms. This is the type of ring that I have used around my peonies. Now, I usually flip them upside down and put the smaller circle down towards the base, and then the larger circle I put up at the top. And so when their stems come up, they kind of lean at an angle. But in the past, this has worked really well to support, and there's all kinds of different peony rings that you can get to support the stems. But this one has always worked really well for me. So now basically I'm just going to fill in the dirt and water it in and hope that it survives the transplant. Okay, so I've got it partially filled back in. I left a little bit of kind of a well around the entire perimeter of that root ball, because I want the water to not run off. I want it to kind of seep down in there around the roots. And if I built it up, I'm afraid a lot of the water would have just run off the sides. So I'm just going to water it in. I'm not doing this because it really needs water, because it's very muddy, but trying to really just mainly settle the dirt around those tubers. When I was digging, there was a lot of earthworms, which made me feel good. You see it's really soaking down in there. That tells me there's probably a lot of air pockets. It's just literally soaking all of that in. And so now I'll just fill in the rest of that dirt around it, kind of mound it up a little to make sure I'm covering up those tubers. You can see the exposed tubers there. and then mulch it good. And then I'm going to put my little support ring around it. It's actually not quite big enough. This is, you can see it's not quite. So I'm wondering if I should go ahead and do it this way. Probably need to invest in some larger rings. It worked great when they were just little baby plants, but now it's, I don't know. Of course, it doesn't necessarily mean that the tubers, every tuber is going to produce, you know, the stems. This one here, there may not be very many. They may be more centered. So once I put the dirt on it, I might just continue to do it this way. As they come up and I see what's going on, I can make changes. I have plenty of time to get a different type of support when I see the green start coming up. Okay, so here it is. And you can see the little pink sprout coming up, and I put it in dead center of where this ring is. And there may be more that come up around in that area, and I'll watch it and make sure that I get it centered good. Now, you don't want to cover peonies too deep. You want to make sure that some of these little eyes and little sprouts are able to come through. I've read that if you plant peonies too deep, it can affect the blooming. So we don't want to do that. And I'll just kind of keep an eye on this, but at least I can now remember it's there, because you can see that if it wasn't for the ring, I might forget in a couple of weeks and step all over it, or, you know, decide I want to plant something else there and forget. I have a tendency to do that. I do have some hostas here. Of course, hostas are the same way. You can't really tell they're there. And you might have a tendency to step on them. I haven't seen any kind of life in the hostas yet, so I don't know. It's not been warm enough. It's been pretty cold here. Just in the last few days it's been warm, so I'm not expecting really to see anything yet. But these were also transplants, so hopefully they survive the transplant. So now it's basically, I've just got to decide, you know, where do I want to place these other 3 peonies? And I kind of lean towards having symmetry. And I've only got 4. And when you stand back and you look at this barn, please excuse the mess. That will be cleaned up for spring. But I've got, you know, a post here, and a post here. And then I've got these 3 crepe myrtles. So I want to have some type of symmetry, but I've only got 4 of those peonies. I planted one of the peonies right there. You can kind of see the ring there behind that hydrangea that has no leaves on it. So I'm thinking maybe surround these 2 inner posts. So this post and this post. Maybe have a peony on this side, and then over here have the 3rd one and the 4th one. And that will maybe look like there was intention and provide some symmetry, because I don't have enough peonies to take them down the full length of this little porch. And I can't just plant them anywhere because I have some hostas that I have transplanted in that area. So I'm thinking that that's going to make the most sense. And so I'm going to dig another hole to the right here of this post. And then over here, I'm going to dig a hole here and here. And that will help basically work around those hostas. Okay, there's my second hole. I tried to stand behind this post and look. And there's the one I planted first, and here's the other one, and I'm hoping that's going to look pretty symmetrical when I get it planted. And the root ball is so heavy. If you don't have one of these hand carts or hand trucks, I guess they call them, these are awesome. You can pretty much lift anything. I lifted some huge concrete urns, and this root ball is pretty big. You can see all the life here, and here, here. But I'm able to transport it easy. I mean, it took me a little bit of effort to get it up onto this, but then you just, I mean, you can lift it this way upright, which I'm not going to do if you have like something tall, or you can carry it down like this if you want to put something, you know, on this long part, and then you can basically just pull it wherever you want it to go. And I can pull it with my pinky. I mean, all the weight's on the wheels. And if you do get one of these hand trucks or hand carts, make sure you get one with these nice wheels. If you get one with those little bitty wheels, they're cheaper, but you will regret it. They won't roll in gravel. They just get bogged down. They're just not strong. So always get the ones with the big wheels. Okay, I managed to lift it off of this thing. Oh my gosh, it was super heavy because it's really wet. But I managed to get it down in the hole, and I'm not sure I faced it the right way, but I'm sure there's a lot of air pockets down around here. So I'm gonna fill it with a little bit of dirt like I did the other one, water it in really good so that all that dirt, that water will kind of push it up underneath this root ball and hopefully get everything settled in. And then after I do that, I'll backfill it completely and put another ring around this one. Now this one's a little bit larger area, so I'm not sure how that ring's gonna work, but we'll see. Okay, this ring is really probably too small. You can see that right on the edge here, there's some new growth coming out, and I'm afraid that ring might affect it. And then over here on this side, but so I'm thinking I probably need a larger ring for this one. But for now, just to kind of mark it, I'm going to leave it as is. And I'm wondering, I turned it upside down. The problem with turning it upside down is these are going to come out and they're going to be on this outside of this ring. And then the ring won't do any good. But maybe I'll leave it like this just so I can remember where it is. In the meantime, I might order some larger ones if I can find them. Just wanted to take a minute and show you the damage that this water had done to this gutter board behind the gutter. I'm not sure you can see it. But that entire 2x6 is completely rotten and the whole end of it is missing. And that was allowing birds to literally get up in the eave and get into the barn. Here's what that 2x6 looked like that was behind the gutter. Okay, now it's time to put the third one in its hole. Do the same thing. Again, you can see this one's very much alive. If you look down here where I planted it, you can see that when I planted the root ball, I did not cover any deeper than it was growing where it was before. You can see the new growth coming out. I did not want to bury that deeper than what it was originally. So I just basically made a little bit of a mound because I expected that this whole plant ball, root ball, will settle. So I built it slightly elevated and just sort of mounded the dirt around the perimeter of it. And I'm going to put some compost around it, and eventually I will mulch it in good. And if it settles a little bit, that'll be fine. It'll be about the normal level of everything around it. But for right now, I don't want to bury those tips that are trying to emerge. All right, here's the fourth and final hole. I'm not sure if it's big enough to accommodate this root ball here. I may need to knock some of this dirt off. So I'll probably go around the perimeter of this root ball and just kind of shave it down. Try not to damage any of the little tubers. But you can see it's a little bit massive. Yeah, that's probably 1.5 feet from this end to this end. And it's got some weeds in it, so I'll clean it up a bit. This root ball was massive, so my husband actually lifted it and put it in there for me. In the process of all this stuff here, moving it, digging it up, moving it, I damaged some of the tubers. You can see this one completely broke off. And there was a huge one that broke off that I threw away already. So I'm hoping that there's enough tubers in here that can sustain it. I also damaged some of the little tips of these little sprouts coming up. They're not sprouts. They're, I don't know, the word is not coming to me, but you know what they are. So now all I have to do is start filling in around the root ball. And I like to kind of take my shovel and gently, so that I don't damage any more tubers, and right around the perimeter, just kind of do a little bit of, not packing, but it just kind of helps. If there's any giant air pockets in there, it just kind of helps to fill in those air pockets. And then once I get it partially filled in, I'll give it the water. All right, I backfilled it pretty good, and now I'm going to add some compost, and probably in a little bit later I'll add the mulch. Once I clean up this entire bed and get all of the dead stuff out and the weeds, I'll go ahead and put a nice layer of mulch, and it will look so fresh and tidy.